Hey everybody, how's it? Aloha. My name is Geebz. I'm the old composer here at the Decomposer Lounge, pulling back the layers and dissecting your favorite suggested tracks. This is by far one of my most favorite instrumental artists. His name is Plini. I'm so sorry. I have called him Plini before until I got smoked in the comments a few times, and I looked it up and I went, oh, God, it just takes a second. Do some research, dude. Plini, I'm sorry. Anyhow, briefly, before I even started doing reactions, a year and a half ago, I became very aware of his creativity, his musicianship, his composition and arrangement skills like 5 years ago when I came across his song called Cascade. And I was just absolutely blown away and enamored by the compositions and everything that was all about. So I am very familiar now, of course, doing this channel and spending a lot of time in front of my browser. A lot of his music has been coming up. I will tell you that I Tell You Someday, which is the name of the song I'm doing from Plini right now, I've already heard. I want to be authentic, be totally honest with you. But the reason why I'm doing this is because you guys have heard me before in the past. I get pissed off, or I get pissed off when I render out my videos and I realize I didn't talk about, a sick bass line or the crazy vocals or stuff, because there's just too much going on when you're trying to do an authentic reaction. And especially if it's a complex piece of music. And there's a lot of things that I just have to let go in my reactions because I stop, I talk, and then in my mind I want to get back to the song so people don't get bored and scroll right by, just like you're probably doing right now until you get to the song. But I just want to do justice, at least by telling you I've already heard it. But also, because of that, I think I can go a little deeper and be a little more precise and explain to you some of the things that I'm hearing that I really, really, really am pumped about this track and I'm able to share with you guys. So let's do this. By the artist name of Plini. Not Plini. I'll Tell You Someday. Let's do this. All right. All right, so here we go. Buckle up. One of the things you may have heard me talk about before is the subconscious hook of what I call the zipline series of notes. In this case, with the rhythm pattern that he's holding. What I love about that, he's got that in unison with the shaker in the background, which is really, really nice because in the tonal spectrum, that high end of the shaker is giving the attack of the notes that he's playing, a very unique little lift, in its presentation. His voicing choices that taken between his main points of his chord changes is to me one of the more powerful aspects of the composition thus far for me. What I'm talking about is da 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 da. All that movement that's going around there has to do with the voicings and the intervals that he's deciding to use in those movements. And those notes, consequently, are part of the key in which he's in. But if he did not have any of the harmonies that he's using with those motions, it would just sound like da 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 da, you know, like a bass line. But his uniqueness in the tone or in the sounds that he's getting based on the voicings in his guitars are just so rich, yet very, and also the choices of the sounds he's using, very ambient. He's very, very purposeful about sending an ambience with his compositions and his arrangements. The deep, those beautiful deep guitar tones that got that bottom end tone to it, you know, they're not this powerfully overdriven sounds that we hear on a lot of, you know, double track, quadruple track chugging or guitar playing. They're the purpose still, what it relates to me is that there's still power going on there, but it's not an abuse of overdriving or something like that. That particular sound in order to give you that punch when the drum comes in. Oh shit, and the drums. Now, it sounds live. There's no two ways about that. I could be wrong. I've learned lately not to say I know and I think, but it sounds fantastic. And the drum playing is absolutely phenomenal. But you notice how what's really super cool about that to me is that there's this kind of half step kind of vibe to it. Kind of a trip steppy kind of or a chill steppy kind of vibe. And that is such a fun upbeat lift without it going overkill. You know what I mean? And the use of the cymbals in that particular part of his arrangements is paramount in that sound for me. Now, Plini's guitar playing. Once again, he has already shown us that he's got, you know, in the past has shown me he's got that skill set of doing what he'd like to do, tapping, fast, and speed. But he's about Miles Davis vibe, Stan Getz vibe. You know what I'm saying? The feeling, the fingers, you know, you play here, it comes out of your hands. You know, he's got that Robin Ford kind of a thing that goes on too. Robin Ford's one of those guys, if he wants to, but most of the time it's about the power of the melody, and that's what this is all about. So anyhow, I'm sorry, I just went really long-winded on this, and so I'm just going to listen to the rest of the track, and then I'll close up and try not to be so long-winded. But once again, listen for that that zip line of dun, da, 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 whatever that pattern is, and how important that is as a through line through what he's doing. Even if you may not hear it, think about that as this rest of the track goes through, and you'll hear that that's that common denominator, that's that sub hook. So much for me to stop talking, right? This is probably the longest break I've ever had, but it's so worth it to me. just could have kept going. And okay, now I want to go back into something else too that I find to be so unique about this is that I've only seen a couple of interviews on him. By the way, I'd love to interview Mr. Plini. If I would love to Twitter message me something, I would love to interview you here. Maybe do a little podcast here on the channel. But is the fact that where he is in the mix is as if he's more or less presenting a piece of work, and it just so happens to be he's the guitar player. You kind of know what I'm saying? Is his lead work is just not so far out front where this is me, a macho man, I'll take this guitar and shove it up your ass. You know, he is sinking it back in there enough where it becomes still an integral part of the arrangement, but his melodies speak out. Also, speaking about his melodies, something that he does that's more of a fusion type of production is that there are synth or other instruments that are in unison with his melody. Sometimes that leads me to believe that he wrote his melody first on the keyboards, you know, and really worked it out, and then came in and learned or played over the top of it as a technique in production to give that unique style. Alan Halsworth and those guys, you know, that way back in the days that had guitar MIDI, cross, you know, 5 lines coming out of their guitar and stuff, they were able to merge all of that kind of stuff. And then finally, the last thing I want to say is what I find, like, what sucks me into, you know, this track more than anything else is the percussive arrangements. You know, a lot of us on this channel here, we really glam and glow over riffs, you know, of all different types. What do all of those have in common? Even this one. It has to do with a sense of rhythm that affects us in a particular way. People who like riffy music are a little different, I think, than people who are like going to listen to, you know, straight 4/4 straightforward stuff. I'm not saying better or less or anything. We just kind of shuck and jive to another, you know, ceremonial, rhythmical ritual, if you would, in here. So when I hear the uniqueness of the rhythmical arrangement that he's done, especially the chords that kind of pop and change somewhat off time or in some kind of syncopation, you know, with the chord changes, kind of reminds me of another guitar player that I'm just in love with, and I have not done anything on him in over a year. I should change that. As Owain, I believe his name. Another brilliant musician that does that. But that's a level. That's a level of fusion progressive instrumental that you really have to soak and rinse in and stuff, and you really got to like that too. There's a lot of very unique chord works and stuff that goes in there, but. But Plini, I think what Plini's done is that he's taken the complexities, but his subtle approach for arrangement and composition has transcended the audience. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? Has made it accessible. It's just kind of like the Tim Henson guy that I just got through doing. What Tim Henson did with his the God Song thing that he did is that he fell in love with the new style. He heard somebody cover his thing. He's doing it, and what he did is he took that style with his trap and his production, and then he blew open a hole in the possibilities of musicians who play bossa nova flamenco style guitars and say, "Wow, this is fantastic!" You know, so it's very trend setting, and perhaps developing a new genre for Mr. Henson. But for Plini. He just stands way out on his own in my world of musicians and instrumentalists and stuff. So, yeah, sorry, I went really long on this, but shit, it's my channel. If you're still here, type in, I'm still here. And Mr. Plini, if, like I said, I would love to interview. I don't know how to get a hold of people. I'm just an old guy. I go surfing, I do this thing, and I do my kids' stuff. But yeah, maybe text, what do you, PM, DM? Eminem, me on Twitter. Anyhow, if you're still here, type in I'm still here. If you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, you know where the links are all down below. You guys take care. Have a killer day. Aloha. All right.